Hello, action flick fans. I'm Ryan, your guide through the explosive world of There Are No Saint, a blockbuster that stormed theaters in 2022. Warning, this video is loaded with action-packed spoilers. Fasten your seatbelts, and let's dive into the adrenaline-fueled chaos. The movie starts. We see a man named Neto on the verge of being released from prison after serving his sentence for the gruesome murder of a woman and her infant son. Neto had earned a reputation for his sadistic nature and complete lack of mercy towards his victims. His best friend, Counselor, had come to pick him up, providing him with some belongings and a smartphone. Counselor warned Neto that his enemies might be waiting for him, suggesting he go to the church to confess his sins and seek redemption. However, Neto expressed his desire to first meet his son. For the time being, Neto stayed at a motel. While he was organizing his belongings, his car alarm suddenly went off, prompting him to investigate. It was then that several men dressed as sheriffs attacked him. Overwhelmed by their numbers, Neto couldn't defend himself. The leader of the group reminded Neto that he would never forget the heinous acts he had committed. Flashes of his past deeds, including the brutal murder of a woman, haunted Neto's thoughts. The following day, Neto went to his ex-wife Nadia's house to see his son, Julio. Nadia's surprise at his presence was evident, and it was clear she was not pleased to see him. Neto explained that he had come solely to visit his son and asked for a brief moment with Julio. Nadia reluctantly allowed him in. Julio, ecstatic to see his father, had missed him greatly. He eagerly showed Neto one of his drawings, holding his father in high regard as his hero. However, Nadia soon approached Neto and requested that he leave because she was expecting her boyfriend. Before departing, Neto took a photograph of his son, a cherished memory. Back at the motel, Neto found himself plagued by memories of his past crimes, particularly the gruesome torture of a woman, where he had brutally stabbed her hands in his pursuit of information about her husband. Determined to seek redemption, Neto visited a church to confess his sins. There, he encountered an old friend who had become a priest. The priest revealed that he frequently saw Julio and commended the boy as a good child who held his father in high regard. In the evening, Neto went to a cafe to meet his friend, Billy, to apologize and express his desire to abandon a life of crime in favor of a more normal existence. He confided in Billy, explaining his desire to lead a regular life. However, Billy, burdened by numerous enemies seeking revenge, informed Neto that he couldn't simply stop and live like an ordinary person. Billy also provided some information about Neto's ex-wife's new boyfriend, revealing that he was a real estate businessman. The following day, Neto returned to his ex-wife's house to learn more about her boyfriend. He discreetly followed her car, hoping to gather additional details about the man. This brief glimpse into the life of Nadia's boyfriend, Vincent, revealed that he was involved in torturing another individual, suggesting he might not be a good person. On the subsequent day, Nadia visited her boyfriend, Vincent, to request the monthly financial support he owed her. Vincent callously threw the money at her, degrading her by insinuating that their relationship was purely for his pleasure. Neto observed this from a distance and, filled with concern, left the scene while Nadia collected the money. Upon returning to the motel, Neto was pleasantly surprised to find his son, Julio, waiting for him outside. Julio expressed his longing for his father and his desire to live with him. Neto was deeply moved by his son's words and the two shared a heartfelt conversation. Julio proudly displayed his paintings, all of which depicted his father, Neto. The following day, Neto received a call from Counselor, who informed him that he had been interrogated by Neto's enemies in an attempt to discover his whereabouts. Neto decided it was time to return home, waking up Julio and explaining the situation to him. When they arrived home, Nadia was waiting, and she scolded her son for not seeking her permission to meet his father. Later, as Neto was having dinner in his car, he received a message from Nadia, asking him to leave her and Julio alone. Neto agreed but requested one final meeting. As he headed to the meeting with Nadia, he encountered some of his enemies waiting for him outside, sparking a fierce battle between Neto and his adversaries. Despite the odds, Neto managed to defeat all his enemies. Following his meeting with Nadia, Neto promised to leave her and Julio alone. However, it became apparent that there were still lingering feelings between Neto and Nadia. They reminisced about their past memories, leading to an intimate encounter in the car. After their passionate encounter, Nadia coldly told Neto not to expect anything from her and instructed him to leave the car, leaving him behind. Unbeknownst to Neto and Nadia, Vincent's men had observed their liaison and reported it to Vincent. Neto received a phone call from Julio shortly after returning to the motel. Julio informed him that his mother had been tortured by Vincent and implored him to come immediately. Neto rushed to Nadia's home, but tragically, he arrived too late to save her, and Julio had been taken hostage by Vincent. Neto attempted to rescue his son but was unsuccessful as Vincent managed to escape with Julio. The police arrived at the scene and, seeing Neto there, mistakenly assumed he was involved in the incident. Neto's priority was now finding and saving his son, regardless of the suspicions against him. Consular picked up Neto and informed him that the police were after him as the main suspect in Nadia's murder. Despite this, Neto focused solely on locating and rescuing his son. Consular mentioned knowing one of Vincent's friends who might have information about Vincent's whereabouts and lent his car to Neto to aid in his search. Neto promptly left the town in search of the friend Consular had mentioned. He ventured into a nightclub in hopes of finding leads. Neto ordered drinks and observed the crowd while inquiring about a man named Rink. A woman named Inez approached him and offered her company. Neto accepted and asked Inez about the Rink. She requested money for the information and, after payment, called her boss, who was in contact with Rink. The boss gave Rink's address to Neto. As Neto traveled to meet Rink, he learned from the radio that the police were actively searching for him. Upon arriving at Rink's residence, a security guard conducted checks before granting him entry. Inside, he encountered Rink and his girlfriend. Neto informed Rink of his need to purchase firearms, knowing that Rink was a firearms dealer. Neto followed Rink to his storage room to select a firearm for purchase. While examining the firearms, Neto inquired about Vincent's whereabouts, revealing that his true purpose was not just buying a gun. Realizing this, Rink attempted to react, but Neto swiftly shot him in the leg and callously killed Rink's girlfriend when she attempted to defend herself. Neto proceeded to torture Rink for information, eventually learning that Vincent was out of town for business. With the information he needed, Neto executed Rink, acquired weapons and money from Rink's stash, and quickly left the scene. Returning to the nightclub, Neto encountered Inez. Unbeknownst to him, some of Vincent's men had trailed him to the nightclub. They initiated a gunfight in the restroom, but Neto managed to eliminate all of Vincent's men on his own. After the confrontation, Neto approached Inez at the bar and requested her assistance in crossing the border. He proposed that she pose as his wife to divert the guards' attention. Inez agreed, setting the condition that Neto would pay her $1,000, which he accepted. They successfully crossed the border and planned to spend the night at a motel. Neto expressed his gratitude to Inez and mentioned that he would drive her to the bus station the next day. Before retiring to her room, Inez inquired about Neto's reason for coming to the town. Neto explained that he was searching for Vincent, who had kidnapped his son. Upon hearing this, Inez offered to assist him but requested payment, a proposition to which Neto agreed. Inez proceeded to visit a real estate website, posing as a potential buyer in search of a house. She contacted Vincent and arranged a meeting to discuss the property she was purportedly interested in, using this as an opportunity to get closer to Vincent and potentially gather information about his whereabouts. The following day, Inez went to visit the house, and Vincent was there to assist her. Vincent explained his business to her and appeared to be attracted to her, inviting her to dinner. Back at the motel, Inez shared some pictures she had taken while interacting with Vincent earlier that day with Neto. He expressed his gratitude for her efforts. Later that night, Inez went to Vincent's house to attend his invitation. Vincent greeted her warmly and invited her inside. Once inside, Vincent offered her some drugs, which she accepted with pleasure. As she became intoxicated, Vincent suddenly slapped her and continued to beat her, revealing that he was aware of her collaboration with Neto. Neto rushed to Vincent's house upon learning that Inez was in danger. He defeated Vincent's guards one by one and entered the house, instructing Inez to leave immediately. Neto managed to capture Vincent and planned to teach him a lesson by torturing him with the sharp weapons he had prepared. Despite enduring torture, Vincent initially refused to reveal Julio's whereabouts. Frustrated by Vincent's silence regarding his son's location, Neto began torturing him more severely. Vincent eventually disclosed that Julio was with a human trafficker named Sands. Neto was about to leave Vincent, but he stopped himself when Vincent insulted his wife, describing her as the worst whore he had ever met. Enraged by the insult, Neto decided to kill him. Returning to his motel, Neto apologized to Inez for involving her in his dangerous mission and causing her harm. She reassured him, stating that she had willingly chosen to help him and thanked him for saving her earlier. They made love to each other later that night and it turned out both of them had a mutual feeling. The next day, Neto, filled with concern for Inez's safety, once again urged her to leave the city, fearing that she might become a victim. Despite his insistence, Inez remained resolute in her decision to stay by his side. After a heated argument, she eventually left the city by taxi, leaving Neto to continue his search for Sands. Neto visited a local boxing ring to inquire about Sands' whereabouts. However, one of the people he spoke to secretly informed their boss that Neto was looking for Sans. Inez cancelled her plans to leave the city and rejoined Neto at the boxing ring. While waiting for information about Sans, they were suddenly ambushed by a group of men. Neto was knocked unconscious and awoke to find himself in a car with some of Sans' men. Seizing an opportunity, he fought back and defeated all of Sans' men. Neto resumed his search and eventually arrived at Sans' remote forest base. There, he discovered numerous people held captive in isolated rooms, including Inez, who was being tortured by Sans' men. Sans' men apprehended Neto and brought him before Sans himself. Sans recognized Neto and revealed that the woman Neto had tortured and killed at the beginning of the story was his wife. Furthermore, Neto had also killed Sans' son. Sans was determined to avenge their deaths and ordered his men to torture Inez and Julio. Bound and restrained, Neto could do nothing but listen to the screams of Inez and his son, Julio. In a desperate bid to save his loved ones, Neto summoned all his strength and fought back. Despite being stabbed with a knife by one of Sans' men, he managed to overpower and eliminate all of them. Finally, he turned his attention to Sans and confronted him, ultimately killing him. With the little strength he had left, Neto tried to save his son, but it was too late. Julio had already perished after being submerged in the well. Neto retrieved his son's lifeless body and buried him the following day, deeply regretting the suffering Julio had endured as a consequence of his own sins. Inez was there to support him during this painful time.